Yes, this is Cullen from www.FlopTurnRiver.com, aka Big Spin to 73. I'm recording a two-table video here on PokerStars um, at 2 cent, 5 cent no limit, or known as $5 no limit, or 5NL. I am not running the PokerTracker software or the Poker Ace heads-up display or HUD during this video. King Jack offsuit under the gun is a fold for me. I'm not going to be playing too many offsuited broadways under the gun. So what we're going to do here is try to get some reads, look at the action, see how people are playing hands. Like Al Bordeaux just showed up with ace 10 offsuit there against a player with kings. Let's see how he played. Okay, we'll bring up the hand history. We see that the king player min raised and under the gun +1. Al Bordeaux called. Um, the king player then bet full pot on the flop. Al Bordeaux called. On the turn, the king player checked, Al bet, and then the king player shoved the river and Al called. So obviously, not a horrible play by Al in a sense. This player did not play his kings well. He should have raised more than min pre-flop, and he out of position he could have bet folded that flop. In position he would have been able to maybe check behind that flop. So I know you guys know a lot about pre-flop play, so we're going to focus on some post-flop play and some reads. So we have another flop here where Al is in the same pot. Since he's on our left, I like to see how he plays because that's the toughest spot for someone to be in versus us. So we have ace-king offsuit, a hand that I'm willing to put in 3 bets with pre-flop. I will be raising it up for value against their limping range. I flop top 2 in a limp pot here. Don Poker, who I do not know, min raises. I'm going to make it 4 times his bet. I'll be betting full pot with top 2. We will see what Don calls. All right, that's a great flop for us. Let's see how we can get the money in here. If I bet 90, I'm going to start with pretty much a full pot size bet, just slightly less than pot, 85 cents. Without a read, I'm gonna call here and look at the turn card. This could be a flush draw. It could be a worse or 2 pair. Well, he check raises, and I'm just going to shove. Now, there's flush draws out there. Um, you know, let's see. We'll see what he has. I'm going to call this bet here, too. I don't have much to read. This could be a set. This could be a flush draw by him. He could have a hand like 4-6, and my hand should be good now. So I may not have gotten maximum value. It looks like Don has an ace that he doesn't know if he should call with or not. He ends up folding. We scoop a nice little pot. So this player can fold. We see that. The reason I shoved this flop is just because the board's so dry. I have top pair, top kicker, and on top of that, worse hands will calm me down. I may not have played the hand on the left screen as well as I should have due to the fact that I was in a pot over here. Let's pull this hand up. I flop top 2 in a limp pot. I bet full pot. I get raised a little more than min, and I call. I'm waiting for some good cards to come. Basically, for my hand. There's a lot of poor cards that come, but basically the 2 of hearts is a good card. It doesn't do anything else to his hand unless he has a hand like ace 4 diamonds. When he bets 30 cents, it feels a little weak, but I'm definitely not folding. And on the river, there's debate. I could lead this river since I could bet fold this river, or I could just call. Let's see what he did it with. He ends up doing it with just top pair. So, not a poor play by him. In a sense, it's a good check behind on the river by him, definitely. I think he realized that his pair of 7s with a mediocre kicker was no good. I will not play Jack 10 offsuit to a raise and a flat call. I may play it to if I had Jack 10 suited. Okay, I flop a gut shot here against a player that I tangled with last time. I'll bet 35 into 45. These guys love to play back at me on these ace high flops. And luckily that time he does not. I do have PokerTracker running and my HUD. I don't have the HUD stats running. I'm just running PokerTracker so I can save the hand histories. So after the session is over, we can do a nice review of the hands. Here's another. We're seeing a lot of semi-large pots already, which is great to gain reads. Okay, Mr. Kaling opened under the gun, and Don Poker called. The flop came ace high. Mr. Kaling bet very weak. So I haven't even seen the results yet, but let's look. Very weak. Does that mean he has an ace? Probably not. Probably not. And the Don Poker calls. He could certainly have an ace, or he could have a flush draw. The turn brings in the flush draw. It goes check, check. The river brings a pair of the threes. Mr. Kaling bets 5 cents, which seems like a weak blocking bet, and Don Poker raises. So right now my range for Don Poker would be either flush draws that he checked through on the turn, or maybe I mean, he's a poor player in a sense. He could have a 3 there, or an ace, or he could just be bluffing missed straight draws in that sense. 2 tens under the gun, I'll be definitely opening. So let's see what happens. And then Mr. Kaling calls, which makes me believe maybe he had a weak ace or a pair between nines and aces, like jacks or something. To the river. Mr. Kaling had, okay, so I need to adjust my reads. Don had a missed straight draw, but Mr. Kaling had king high. This is a decent flop, especially against this player. I'll be willing to felt this flop. I'm going to bet 40 into 45. Actually, if he puts money in, he was so passive that other hand. So passive. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do here. He's thinking. If he thinks forever and raises, it might be a fold. Certainly the only hand that I'm putting him on that beats me is a Jack X type hand. But he was so passive in that last pot. He had King Queen though. But I mean, I know I could probably shove on him and get called by worse hands, which makes me think a shove could be okay. Certainly he's calling with a Jack there. But for the most part, Ace Jack suited at this level I will open. At the higher levels, I would not do it, but players will call me with worse hands, which is why I open this hand. I will open the 8-9 suited to 4 times the big blind against this Al Bordeaux player. He calls. We know he's a bit of a calling station. Our hand is nicely disguised. We'll be c-betting 30 into 40 here. This is a good flop to c-bet up here. He either has a hand he can continue with or he can't. It's not a bad card. I'm going to bet fold this turn. If I get raised, I'm going to bet 60 into 95. The reason I bet is because I just don't like giving the lead up. Cool. This is an interesting spot. I could check and call a reasonable size bet. If I check, I wonder if he bets a jack. That's the problem. If he has a missed flush draw, it's interesting. And he might just have a missed flush draw, and he does. Or that would be my guess, a missed flush draw. So there's definitely arguments for betting and for checking that river. We become three-handed. Let's take a look at the hand history and see what he checks behind. 9-10, so we had a missed open-ender. So kind of the same thing. I was probably going to be able to call a reasonable river bet. And I'm going to get off this table now. And I don't like doing this in videos, but I will get off this table and bring another one in. I don't want to play three-handed. Because that's not what these videos are about. This is about playing 6 max today. I found another table. I will be sitting out here. Apologies for having to bring another one in, guys, but we will close out this video and bring another table in. So if to get new reads, bring another table in, get it settled here. Okay. So we need new reads. I don't recognize any of these players, and I doubt I will at these levels just because I haven't played them in so long. And coming up the ranks, I never played them at PokerStars in the first place. But for the most part, we're just still going to try to gain some reads, take a look at the pots. I like to see, like at this table, who's been winning a lot of pots here. Well, I have lately, since I sat down really, but Nexa has been. That's about it. Dingle Data is one of few, but haven't heard much from these players on the left side of the screen, so I can assume they're playing fairly tight poker. I will open the King 10 suited, and I open everything to 4 times the big blind. I've experimented in the past with 3 times, and you're more than welcome to. There's nothing wrong. I get flat called, so let's talk about the range at a player 5 no limit that's just flat calls, or some people call them cold calls. My range. It's a lot of small pairs. It's a lot of ace X or big Broadway hands. I think against this player's range, a c-bet's very profitable. I think he's folding a lot of hands, and he's obviously not folding the smaller pairs. And I get min raise, and this is an easy fold. I would, you see this a lot, and it can get frustrating. The guy just min raises you, and you have to give it up with your 2 big cards, and that can be frustrating in a sense. But his range is a lot of small pairs here, right? Now it could be a set, or it could be a pair like fives, or a hand like 6-5. But for the most part, I don't think 3-bet shoving as a bluff here is the best. Now if I had a flush draw, I'd probably be just coming over the top and making a big bet here and shoving the turn. But overall, I will not complete the king 7 suited. So we're still trying to get some reads here, just figure out what our opponents are doing. We're only 10 minutes in, so we've got about another half an hour. What I'll do is probably play for half an hour more and do a quick 5 or 10 minute review session in PokerTracker of some of the larger hands. Let's see here, we have a min-raise battle going on here, and it finally gets shoved. And this player, min 3 bets. He bet, it looks like Flan feels, and bet min 3 bets, and then he's thinking about folding to $2 more. He's getting more than 2-1 on his money. If he has any kind of hand, it's probably good enough to go with here. I don't know what kind of hand he can. I mean, a flush draw is obviously good enough to go with here, having 30-35% equity. The flush draw does come in. Ooh, wow. So this player we can consider is a little weak tight for the fact that he min 3 bet, and then he actually took some time at this level. Took some time. Now I pick up a double gut shot straight draw on this table. If Dingle daily checks, I will bet 15 into 15. I'm trying to take it down here, but I do have a lot of equity in this pot. I'm not going to open the H3 offsuit on the button. It just doesn't play well against resistance. So a note on this player might be somewhat weak tight. Let's take a look at that hand history of this pot. What if Flan? So Flan just opened up to 3 after a limper. He only raised it 2 more big blinds. Then he bets full pot on the flop. Let me bring this back up to the 4 round. He bets full pot on the flop. He gets min raised. He min 3 bets, and the other player shoves. King 9 suited's questionable, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to try to play a few more hands. And then he takes some time to think about it. So at this level, him actually thinking about that tells me that he's, a bit passive. Passive, post flop, will consider folding over pairs. I don't flop anything at all. I'm going to just be check folding. If Dingle Daily opens here, I might 3-bet. And once again, I'll open. These tables seem a bit tight passive. Sometimes you get a table full of loose maniacs. Sometimes you get a good mix. This player's flat called me again. I get called with a big blind. This flop, I will not be c-betting. I'll be folding. Now, once again, I mean, this is when it starts to upset you a little bit. This player bets 15 cents into 60. Getting 5-1 to continue. Unfortunately, it's just probably not profitable to do so. I could raise here, certainly, and I wouldn't fault you for doing it, but without a read of this player being able to bet fold, I don't like a raise. So hopefully this player keeps leading or keeps check min raising, and we're actually going to pick up a hand here in the future and stack them. I get 3-bet by the player who was passive last time. 3-bet pretty large. Maybe he's doing this a lot. No, just not that active. 40 cents here to win 456, and we will stack off with overpairs. And plus, there's already getting 2-1 in the pot, so I'm getting about 13-1 set odds, which is just very borderline. But I'm going to call here and see if I can't flop a set. And I do, and I will be check pushing this flop. And obviously with the nuts, that's an easy call. He has an overpair again, and my hand should be good. So I got very lucky, but against a player who will stack off at this level, obviously it's good. He had 5-8 offs. Okay, so I wish he had shown up with aces or kings there or something, because now my call is poor. Against a player's range who's wide, I want you guys to understand this. The reason my call is poor pre-flop is I'm playing that hand for pretty much for set value. And against a player like this, who was 3-betting a wide range, I'm just going to shove the ace-5 into him. He's ready to call. He's on tilt. He folds. Against a player's 3-bet range that's wide, it's unprofitable. It is not profitable to call for set value because they will not have a hand they can stack off with generally. Now, luckily, I flopped top set, and he shoved, and he actually had, and we'll show you later, he had about 20% equity in the pot. And I'm betting he thought on the river he had the best hand with 8-5 suited is what ended up happening. But with a gut shot straight draw, he has about 20%, slightly less because I have a redraw with a full house, slightly less there though. But Wow, the open push is quite strange. We have an open under the gun by a player that hasn't been acting too much and a call by a player who has. I'm going to fold. This player's range should be pretty darn tight opening under the gun, and I have to play out of position. He checks very quickly. He could be slow playing. Um, yeah, see, okay, guys, right here, this is how you do not beat these stakes. Slow player, um, check, check, checked the nuts twice and bet min on the river is what I'm going to type eventually when I'm able to. And so against this time player, and I will complete the 4-5 suit and bet min on the river. And you can see how a hand like Queen Jack can be in a lot of trouble. And we'll also note that he opens King Queen offsuit under the gun, because that's something I would not do. I do not open King Queen offsuit. Now I flopped a pair of fours here, but this is certainly not the reason I was playing this hand. And I could have the best hand. Check calling is definitely reasonable. If this player bets, I will not be though. So this player's, but I should have the best hand now after no one's bet at it. Oh, and excuse me, guys, that's a mistake. The HUD stats should not have popped up there. I forgot to uncheck this table. So let me uncheck this table. We'll get the HUD stats off, and we'll get going. So now I'm deep against two other players. I'm 150 big blinds deep against Life, and I'm nearly 200 big blinds deep against Triple Pin, however you like to say his name. Probably sound like Towns in there, mispronouncing the names. But so it looks like we have about 25 minutes of play left. We're just going to keep getting reads. I like to talk about that 9-9 hand again. Okay, the reason I'm able to call pre-flop is because I have a player I know who will stack off with overpairs. So right there I need a bout. And when he 3-bets, and seeing how passive he was with the aces before, I'm thinking he does have an overpair again. Now he might have been slightly tilted because of that ace-ace hand, and that's something I definitely should have realized. I will open the Queen Jack offsuit on the button. It's certainly my button opening range. This could be a very tight table. Well, look, we have a bunch of full stacks. This could get interesting. Full stack pokers is definitely, and I'm going to keep raising it up. I mean, I might even opening my range up a little bit if these players are going to play this tightly. I get flat called. That's a great flop to see bet. It's hard for him to continue without much. I'm going to bet 35 into 45. And he just check folds. So, I mean, small pairs are in his range. Broadways that don't have a club are in his range, and he has to fold those. Certainly, I'll be isolating the limper here with my Queen Jack offsuit. My image is probably getting somewhat poor, and that's okay, because now I will tighten up a bit. And I get called, and I flop top pair. Now, I'm not going to exactly try to build this pot. I'm going to bet 2/3 here. I get called. That card's okay. I'm just going to keep firing. I'm going to bet 85 into 140, and he folds. Okay, so I probably have a pretty lag or pretty tag image. I haven't shown down a bad hand yet, but these players aren't realizing that. All they're saying to themselves is, "Oh my God, this guy keeps raising. He must be a maniac." And that's certainly not the case. I've just had a decent run of cards. I don't flop anything here, and I'll be check folding my queen high. But this is how you adjust, though. If these players are going to start calling me more and floating me more, and what I mean by floating is calling streets to take them away on other streets, or just not believing bets of mine, not believing my C bets, then I will tighten up my range, and that's how I exploit them. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'll show up with a big hand when they've adjusted. Okay, I will adjust as they adjust, and that's how I'm going to win some money off of them. So I hope you guys are so far enjoying this video. This is the first video of the series. Certainly one. There will be better ones to come. We'll do some fun, crazy things, I think, today. For the next few series. We're going to maybe try to 9 table and see if Camtasia will allow it. I will open the 3s to the limper to try to build a pot. And he limp folded last time too, so. And I take it down. So for the most part, my image may be a little poor, but that's okay. It's quite all right. You can see how players easily stack off. A guy 3-bet me with 8-5 suited, and okay, I keep kind of getting sidetracked in that thought. Here's the deal. When he opens, and let's bring it up here. Let me find the hand history. It's right here. Okay. We'll show you guys the whole hand history. I open under the gun with nines, and he 3-bets. I'm getting 40 cents to call. There's 80 cents in the pot, plus there is, if I remember correctly, another 440 behind a V1 from him, if you can see, or from me in general. So I'm getting about 13 to 1 on my set odds, and I'm not turning nines completely into a set mining hand, but I kind of am. This guy looked passive to me. He didn't seem out of line. He hadn't been playing that many pots, so therefore I'm thinking at this level to get 3-bet he has either maybe an ace-king hand, but certainly an overpair. I will definitely call. Dingle Daily's been somewhat tight. I'm definitely going to call for set odds. We're plenty deep here. And that's all I will be playing this hand for. And I don't flop anything. This is not a bad flop to bluff at. We'll see if Dingle Daily bets at it. Does. I don't know much about fugitives. 20 cents into 50. It seems a bit weak. I'm going to raise it up. We'll see if we can't take this pot away. Now, if fugitive calls, I will certainly... we'll see what Dingle Daily does. This is a bit of a play. I'm really not doing this because I have a flush draw and he folds. So, we take a pot down. And that's just bets seem weak. Betting 20 cents into 50 to me did not seem strong at all. Ace-8 offsuit will be a fold there. Now, getting back to the set mining hand. So I have 40 cents. I'm getting 13 to 1 to set mine. And I do flop top set. I'm just looking to check shove that flop there. Pretty much is what I want to do. And unfortunately, the reason I'm saying it was in a profitable play just to set mine is because what he showed up here with 8-5 of clubs. And the reason being, everyone's probably saying, well, wait, you should have called. You were ahead. Well, not if I'm just going to play for set value. There's two reasons because of that. Number one is he's not going to have a hand that he can stack off with a lot if he's playing 8-5 suited to a 3-bet. So calling there out of position becomes a poor play because I'm calling 40 cents thinking I might have a chance to win his stack when really he's not. If I flop a set a lot of times, he's not going to have a hand he can stack off with. Okay, I got fortunate there that he happened to flop bottom pair and decided to shove the flop. But in general, he won't have a hand to stack off with there, as I said. So that's kind of the reason that set mining there against him is bad. And what I've just shown you guys is how you yourself can defend against the set miners. And the way you defend against the set miners is you 3-bet and you open a little more lightly. Therefore, they aren't allowed just to sit around and mine for a set against you. I flop top pair here on a bit of a draw board. I'm going to go ahead and bet 50 cents into 57. It's going to be interesting if I get played back at. And he just check folds. So a lot of times I'm opening pre-flop and getting a lot of check folds. I have been flopping some nice hands. I decided not to raise up the 8-7 suited. I'll open up the 7s. I'm getting some nice hands, which is good. Good for us to watch. Good for us to learn about here a little bit. And they fold to me. So they're playing. I want to take note that even though I'm opening a lot of hands, they are not resisting much. These players at this table right now are really not giving me much resistance. And because of that, I don't like to use the check boxes. Because of that, I can keep opening until they adjust. And the goal is to adjust as they adjust, like I've already said, and to kind of beat them to the punch. I will just check the king 4 offsuit out of the big blind. I flop nothing. I will be check folding. Typically, I would suggest that these games, if you do like to use the HUD, playing about 20%, 25% of your hands, coming in for a raise for about 3/4 of that amount. I could give you a pre-flop rundown, but I figure you guys, if you're smart enough to find these videos, you're certainly smart enough or bright enough to find yourself a pre-flop chart online. So we have ace king offsuit, somewhat deep stacked. I'm going to raise it up to 30. Definitely deep stacked against these players, and raising it up out of position is I expect to get called here. Hopefully we can flop a big hand and they pick the wrong time to play back at us. That's kind of the way it goes. Once again, I flop an ace. This is a great flop. I will be felting this without a doubt. I get pushed in by a lot worse aces. I get called in 3 spots, and that's a great card. I'm just going to keep firing now. I'm going to bet 225. If there's a set out there, there's a set out there. I'm going to stack off with top 2 here.
That's another good card. Now I'm just going to bet 4 for value, really. Um, this player pushes. That kind of stinks. Ugh, yeah, I think he flopped a set. That's unfortunate if he did. Yep, he did. So, we have to reload, and we got stacked 200 big blinds deep, and he slow played on a bad board. So, unfortunately, that was a kind of a bad turn card because I could probably get away from that otherwise. Um, we'll see what the other player had. So he set mine against me profitably. It's just a tough turn card. The other player ends up having Ace Jack. So yeah, I would have stacked him. It's unfortunate. I'll get back in the fight and see if we can't get some chips back. So um, a lot worse aces are there though in their range, and that's what kind of stinks about that spot. But oh well, you know. He min raises. He doesn't get absolute value really out of there against me. I mean, he gets my stack, right? But for the most part, you know, Dingle Daily. I don't know much about this player's opening range, but I'm gonna 3-bet here to 55. Just about 3.5, slightly less than 4 times. So I'm in position, and probably my hand range is probably ahead of his or her range. And it gives me a call. I'll be betting in a 3-bet pot. I'll probably be betting 75 cents into the $1.10 pot. About 2/3 is a typical pot size, a typical bet, and he goes ahead and folds. So unfortunate. We got stacked 200 big blinds deep, but it's okay. We built an image, unfortunately, and we had to kind of go with that image in a sense, and that's what kind of stinks there. So when he min raises that river, it's unfortunate, and I almost felt like I was getting set up by him, but my image is so bad when he's calling down, he can be just calling down with a worse ace. I mean, he limps in. Unfortunately, he limps in, and we can look at the hand history all we want, but there's not much is going to change. On the turn, I bet 225, and the pot's just huge. I can't fold the river. I mean, the pot ends up being $26. I'm getting like 7, 8 to 1, and by that point I'm pretty sure he has a set, but there's no way I'm folding getting that price, and unfortunately on that board, I'm gonna go broke, and just a kind of a brutal turn card. I'll probably slow down on the turn a little bit bet sizing wise, and maybe just check call the river, but unfortunate. We were deep, and he flopped a set, and I had top 2, so not much we're going to do about that, and stuff like that happens, and it's variance, and that's why you carry a large bankroll for your level, because you don't be playing with a smaller roll, and that happened, and that's a fifth of your roll. You don't play on a $25 bankroll or a $50 bankroll and have $10 out in front of you, because they just went 20% of your roll. So, I flop an open ender on this board. It's going to be interesting to see if he raises me. I'd flop top pair in a blind battle. And he just folds anyway, so we'll see what happens. But Triplin, he doesn't play that hand poorly. He certainly could have played it better. I like a flop raise on an ace-high board. Just unfortunate. Looks like we have about 12 minutes left of playing time. I'm just going to keep talking about hands just like that one. My bet sizing was more for value, especially in the river. I'm trying to get value out of ace 7, ace 8, ace jack, like this one player, paid his whole stack off for. And the player with ace jack really makes a bad play. But because for me to bet into the field twice in a row on an ace high board, there's no way he's ahead with ace jack. And I want you to understand what betting in the field means. And I'll bet into this flop right here. Open ender and top pair. I'm going to bet full pot. Not let just a small diamond continue against me. Bigger diamonds will, but not a smaller diamond. Ace jack, once I bet into the field, and I'll complete the queen 10 suited, it's not too marginal. Once I bet into the field twice, and I flop a flush draw, I'm going to just keep firing at these boards. 3/4 pot here. I get flat called. Couple spots. That's a bad card. Because 5's in everybody's range. Let's see what this player bets. Wow. He has a 5 and he's scared of the flush draw. It's pretty obvious to me. But I can't continue for $1.05 more. I cannot continue. So nice bet. I could have bet the turn there, but I get raised off my hand a lot. I was hoping that he would make a weaker bet that I could just call profitably. The pot was about 65 cents and he bet $1.05 into it. I was looking for more of a 40-cent type bet that I could call, getting 2.5 to 1 immediate odds and getting, yeah, certainly some bigger odds. So we'll just keep plotting along. We're still slightly up a little bit for the session, even though we lost a 500 big blind pot there. Let's see if we can't pick up some more hands. So we had, the reason I just kept firing at that board, and besides the fact that I had top two, was one, Worcester hands are calling without a doubt. Two, there was a flush draw out there, which means a lot. And three, is because my image was poor. And so I knew to protect my image, I needed to bet my big hand there. And what I mean by that is, if I want to be able to have a laggy or taggier image where I can see bet without hands and take down pots, then I certainly want to do it when I do have a hand. I don't want to change it up and slow play when I do have a hand, because then it makes me very easy to play against. When I'm betting, you can raise or call, and when I'm checking, it's very easy for you to check behind. So I'm open the twos up. I open all the pairs. Number one is for deception, slightly, because they won't put me on a small pair if I flop a set. Number two is to be able to represent an ace like on this board. And he calls quickly. Very quickly. I don't remember how quick his calls were in the other hand, but I think they were fairly quick too. And, he could have a flush draw. I'm going to 3-bet Dingle Daddy. I don't like people taking my blinds. This is a good hand to defend with. I'll probably check fold here, certainly. I flop top pair, and I can't continue. This looks more like a value bet, 45 cents than this much. I'm going to bet 70 and $1.05 here. And he folds. Well, I tried to represent the ace on the flop. He could have a hand like a miss flush draw or even a 4 or 5 type hand, but he's turning into a bluff here. But 8, 9 or a flush draw is in his range, but I don't think it is enough. He's pretty passive. I'll open the Jack 10 offsuit. It's somewhat marginal, especially if I have a poor image. This is a decent flop to see bet. 30 cents here and 40. And he folds. So these guys are giving up a lot on both tables, which is nice. And I flop a set on a very dangerous board. I will not be allowing him to do that. Being deep, 15, so I call 90, so we need to make it about 95 here. If he shoves, I have to call. Okay, and he folds. So we have to protect our hand there, and we also just help grow our image even more by raising there. Just such a drawy board. I mean, even though it was a rainbow board, there's a lot of pair draws, like a 7-8 type hand, as you can see here. And you can see that my image gets me maybe a walk every once in a while. There's a lot of pair 7-8, 6-8, 4-5 type hands that have a lot of equity even against a set. And while my equity is still large, I should be exploiting that. I should be putting more money in when I have equity or a large amount, and as that hand goes on, my equity will the turn card is going to bring a big change in equity. Say he has a hand like 7-8, and he's going to right then and there he has about 30% equity in the pot with this open ender. Well, the turn card is going to really change that for the good or for the bad. So there are reasons behind just trying to see a turn card cheaply, but obviously not there with such a big hand like sixes. And I've been so aggressive that they're willing to felt probably like bottom two there, or top and bottom pair, and hands like that. I have ace king once again. Nemesis hand, 2 limpers. I will be raising it up to 6 times the big blind. Usually 4 plus 2 limpers is 6. I get flatted by the small blind. And when I say flatted, I mean he just cold calls or calls a raise, excuse me. And my image is so poor, we'll see what happens. But his range is a lot of pairs. This is a great flop. This is almost a good flop to check behind, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to check behind like I don't have the ace, and I'm going to try to get value out of later streets against him. Now I can go ahead and bet. He might call me down lightly. Kind of a slow play in a sense. Yeah, definitely. He has an ace. He's not folding. So I'm just going to bet $1 for value, and if he raises, I can fold. He's not going to put me on an ace. Oh, and I will get rivered. Gosh darn it. I play that exactly how I want to. Okay. So no reason to tilt or get mad about hands like that. Stuff like that happens. We were getting value out of all aces there except ace queen or ace eight, obviously. Uh, we can note how passively he played that. It's just a bit unfortunate, you know. Stuff like that certainly happens. He hits a three outer. I played my hand in a way to get maximum value in my mind. Let's make it 25 to go with the queens. With a poor image, this is a great hand to have. And I forgot to rebuy, and that's my fault. So we're playing this hand with slightly shallow stacks, so we'll take that into account too. He calls. We also want to note that this player will call a raise pre-flop. Call a raise, and I'm going to have to go and bet. Even though I don't have a king, I'm going to bet 45 into 57. And I take it down. So call a raise pre-flop with ace-8 offsuit. And then also that he will just call a 2/3 pot size bet with top and with two pair. With two pair there. Okay, so here's the reason. Let me top my stack up a little bit. We only have a few more minutes. Here's the reason I check behind that flop. Because that board's so dry, and we look at that hand again, unfortunately, okay, we'll be check folding this board. We'll just keep that clicked. The board is so dry, right? There's not a flush draw out there at all. And I kind of see the reason why he might have just called, because the flush came in on the river. I pick up a flush draw. It's a bad one, and he bets full pot. Just going to go ahead and fold. Certainly not going to let someone just limp the button when I have king queen suited. I'm well ahead of his limping range, so I raise for value, but I also raise just to take the pot down right there. So it's been a bit unfortunate. You know, I've run into some hands. I was going to win a nice little pot there against the ace-8 because of the way I played it. So when the flop comes, I will not be continuing with king jack offsuit. I'm going to be out of position the whole way. Same with the jack 9 offsuit. Suited, they might have been more of decisions. When the flop comes, ace 7-7. Okay, that's a great flop in my mind to check behind. Now I know I have an image of being very laggy, which is probably incorrect to check behind there, but I do it just because I think if I check behind there, I can get a lot of small pairs to call me down the rest of the way. And that's why I do it. Unfortunately, sure, I'm giving hands like ace-8 a bit of a chance to stuck out, but as you notice, I bet 2/3 of the pot on the turn and he calls. And then on the river, I bet 2/3 again and he calls, and he happens to have ace-8 there. So I think against every other ace in the book, I'm getting a lot of value out of that. But the thing is, I'm not putting an ace in his range. That's why I decided to check that flop. If I put an ace in his range, I would have c-bet that flop 100% of the time and just gone three barrels and tried to get all the money in, But against his range, which I think is a lot of small pairs, I think c-betting that flop is incorrect. Okay, so that's why I did it right there. I know now that his cold calling range has ace-8 in it, and let's even see if that was ace-8 suited. If it wasn't, that's just a very poor pre-flop call by him, very marginal. And no, it was ace-8 offsuit. I'll open up the king-8 suited, even though my range is bad. These guys are playing very weak tight. And I expect to take the blinds down a lot of the times. This player calls again. This is a good flop to bet. 35 into 42. Small pairs are in his range a lot, which means I might have to two-barrel scare cards like this one. He calls quickly. And I get min raised. Insta min raised. And shoot. Well, I two-barrel because if he has small pairs, I get a fold a lot of the times from hands like 5s or 6s, not only because of the queen, but also because of the heart draw came in. I'm getting check min raise now, and once again, getting min raise just stinks, and I hate it. And I wish I would love just to be able to shove over it more, but I don't have reads on these players. So for the most part, I'm going to go ahead and fold and give him credit this time. But we'll keep an eye on that in the future. King 8 suit is definitely marginal there. Probably be a little too loose to open. Okay, so just gonna keep kind of grinding away. We just got a few. Yeah, we're pretty much gonna stop here in the next little time. Actually, I'm gonna take this off. Take the post blinds out. We're actually pretty much done then, unless this player posts. Yeah, we're pretty much done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close these tables out. Um, close these tables out. I'm going to bring PokerTracker in, and we're going to review this session really quickly here. Okay. One second. Let me bring PokerTracker in. Okay. Expand it on the screen here. Okay, this is PokerTracker, guys. You can see here I played 125 hands. My voluntary put money in the pot was 24.8%. My pre-flop raise was 20.8%. So like I said, 75 to 80% of our range, of our raising range, right there. Okay, I lost $2, which is about 40% of a stack, which isn't too bad. We ran a little poor in a sense. We got stacked in a big pot. That's what I like to look at when I review my sessions, though. I'll click on this game notes tab up here, and what then I'll do is I'll click the get all tab to get all 125 hands. Then I'll click the net to sort. Okay, we can see I won one big pot. Unfortunately, I lost a very big pot. Actually, about 217 big blinds deep. What I do is I click the replay button, the play back this hand button. Okay. So what we want to look at is I like to hide the player's hands here as we go through it and put people on hands. So Triplin Dog limps under the gun, BLEV day, Belev day, limps on the button. I certainly want to raise up for value my ace king, also to build a big pot. All right, ace X suited's a lot in the limping range. We flop an ace, I'll have a much easier time getting all the money in. The big blind folds, I get called in both spots. So right now I am thinking pocket pairs, but also ace X type hands. And this is where three-way I show a lot of strength. First of all, firing 85 cents and a 95 on the flop. When I get called in both spots, alarms should have been going off in my hand, in my head. Sorry, but they don't, unfortunately. And it's something suspicious. I'm thinking one player though could have an ace, a hand like ace 7 or a hand like ace 10 even, and the other player could have a flush draw, a queen jack suited type hand. So on the turn, I'm going to bet 225 into 350, and I get called in two spots, which is just a little unfortunate. The river brings an 8, which is a great card for my hand. It doesn't improve anybody else's hands to a better hand. If I was beat before, I'm already beat. The pot's pretty large. A hand like 7-8 suited now, 7-8 of diamonds could be paying me off. I'm going to bet for value. I bet $4 into 10.25, so slightly less than half size the pot. And that's just for value. I get min raised very quickly by this player, and by that time it's unfortunately obvious to me that I am behind, and I can only hope for a hand like 7-8 of diamonds or like King 8 of diamonds somehow that he's limping. Unfortunately, I call. We flip the cards over, and he did flop a set. So a bit of a cooler pre-flop. I raise it up, and he calls, and there's nothing out of the ordinary from there, and I end up making top 2 in a raised pot and a big pot on the river, and I'm not folding, unfortunately. So a well played hand. By him in that sense. He obviously wasn't scared of the flush draw. There's no reason to believe that I could have a flush draw even. I'd have to have a hand like King Queen of Diamonds to have a flush draw. So all in all, I call that a bit of a cooler. Being 200 big blinds deep, though, it just kind of stinks. Let's look at some other hands. Let's look at the biggest hand I won. And just one more time talk about this hand and why my play may not have been that great. Forehand, I open under the gun, and the button 3-bets me. Who is passive? Who I had a note on was being passive. He played a pair of aces somewhat passively and did not raise much pre-flop, which maybe should have tipped me off that he didn't have that strong of a hand when he 3-bet me big, or bigger than min, due to the fact that he made a very small open before with just the aces. Flop comes great. I flopped the virtual nuts, and he just opened shoves, and there's not much. Right? I mean, he checks, and I check, and he opens shoves, and there's not much I can do there. I just call, and we can see on the flop that he will have about 15 to 18% equity, 15% equity, because typically he'd have 20%, equity just with the naked gut shot. But the fact that I do have about a 20-25% redraw for a full house brings his equity down to about 15%. Money goes in on the turn. Yeah, now he's 10%. We'll see, because I can't make a full house here if he makes his gut shot. Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I've read the board incorrectly. Actually, he's drawing dead. He's just drawing to a split, because when the 8 comes, the gut shot now splits the pot for us, and I end up scooping a nice pot. But the reason I'm saying this is an interesting hand is because he 3-bet me obviously very lightly, and I guess I hadn't noticed. Maybe he got on tilt from that ace's hand that he had lost about 3 or 4 hands ago, but I hadn't seen him act too out of line between those hands. But anyway, the fact that he's 3-betting me light makes it unprofitable for me to set mine. But if I had I known he's three betting light, it makes it more profitable for me to actually just turn my pair of nines into a showdownable hand against this player. So knowing that he was going a little crazier in the long run would make me believe that I could show down the nines, and I would try to find a way to show them down as cheaply as possible, which out of position is tough. So I've kind of shown you in a sense how you can defend against the set miners by three betting a little more lightly, and also having a little wider opening range. Okay. So, overall a decent session. There's a lot of things we could look at here in the PokerTracker. I'm just going to go back to the main screen and kind of finish everything up. I was very aggressive, very aggressive. I bet a lot of pots. And my image, unfortunately ended up maybe hurt me in a sense. But, I did stack off with the ace-king hand. It's just a bit unfortunate. But overall, a pretty good session. I didn't get the aces or the kings ever, no big pairs. But hope you guys enjoyed this session. I hope you enjoyed the reads and the way I play. And I think what you can take from this is that you want to remain aggressive and you want to build an image against these type of players, and you want to tighten that image up a little bit. Not tighten the image up in a sense, but tighten your own range up, and that way you when they do finally play back at you, you've already adjusted to their adjustment, and you'll be better off for it. Once again, this is Cullen, aka Big Spin of 73 from www.FlopTurnRiver.com. I hope you guys enjoyed the first part of my 4 or 5 part micro stake series. Hopefully next time we can actually win some money. You guys have a good day.